How's it going, everybody? This is Joey of Underage Packers. Today, I have another interesting draft video for you today. After the 2020 draft, it was clear that the Packers were not looking for immediate contributors in that draft. They drafted a quarterback for the future, so a quarterback to develop. They drafted a running back when they already have two starting capable running backs. And then they drafted a H-back tight end type thing where, even it's going to take a year or two for him to get used to Matt LaFleur's system. So that's where they went with their first three picks. They traded their fourth rounder to trade up for Jordan Love. And then in rounds 5 through 7, they kind of addressed some more needs with Kamal Martin at inside linebacker. And then they had 3 interior offensive linemen in the 6th round. So, the national media, all the draft experts will tell you that you can only find good talent in the first round. You should never consider adding any, future needs. You must draft only immediate needs. There is no value in adding simply good football players. No context is taken in their draft grades of who fell. It all depends on how the board falls. So that's the one thing, if I got to ask Brian Gutekunst one question, there'd be a lot of questions, but, what is the process like, and really just any front office man in the NFL, what is the process like going into the draft? Obviously, when you're going into it, you don't know if A.J. Dillon, Jordan Love are going to be on the board, but are they planning, saying, we have the roster to win a Super Bowl, and that 2020 team had the roster to win a Super Bowl. They just sucked when it mattered most. So, are they saying going into the draft, let's not necessarily ignore need, but let's see if we can add some more players that would help us out in the future, because we know we don't need any immediate contributors right now. Is that their mindset, or do they really just like Jordan Love, Josiah DeGuara, and A.J. Dillon? That's what I'd be really interested in, and that's what's going to be the topic of today's video. How will the Packers draft in 2021? Not specifically players, but what method will they take to this year's draft? So I'm going to list 2 or 3 options or paths the Packers could possibly take, and then I'll give you my guess for how I think they'll attack this one. So let's start off with number 1, which is all in my opinion. All in is typically thought of signing every single player. The Packers have a different definition of all in their mind, of bringing the band back together because they know they have the roster to do it. And then there's, when you get to the draft, it's like, how do you go all in with the rookies that you don't know are going how to turn out? And that's simply not the Packers. I think this is very unlikely, where they're just drafting for immediate contributors, where they're saying, I don't know what he develops into, but we know right now he has some great talent to go out there, at the very least, be a role player, help along somewhere, the defensive line, possibly help in the secondary. We don't know what he has the potential to develop into, but we're going to reach on him because we know he has the talent. That sounds like an awful idea in my book. So hopefully Brian Gutekunst agrees. But that is the possibility, where they specifically look to just add good football players. And no matter the need, like I said, disregarding need in a different way than the 2020 draft did. And just, like I said, adding the best player available. So, and like I said, who can contribute the earliest on in their career. All right, next method or path is future need. And this is a 2020 draft strategy that I was talking about. Quarterback, after the 2019 season, it was, if the slope of Aaron Rodgers' career, it's 2014, it's at its peak. Flat, stays there for about 2015, 16, obviously a dip in 17, awful in 18. A slight increase in 18. I'll probably look stupid with my hand making a graph here, but in 2019, it was fair to say he's coming off 2 injured seasons. In 2018, where he had a very troubling relationship with his head coach and did not play the best. In 2019, his play is off. He's missing some of the mechanics. He's missing the fundamentals that should be there. He's overthrowing running back screens. He's losing some connections with Aaron Jones. So, there was reason to believe he was falling off, and there was reason to believe in 2 or 3 years that will be a future need. Now, obviously, we know what happened in the 2020 season. There's still a lot to play out with the Jordan Love project, but there was reason to assume it was a future need. With A.J. Dillon and the running backs, you have both Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams coming up on contract year. Don't even get me started on how stupid an idea it is that we can't have Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. I'm super excited for A.J. Dillon. It was obviously, I don't need to explain why they thought it was a future need. And even with re-signing Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon is going to be great this year. And we're going to have, I think a lot of people aren't necessarily, they don't know what to expect, how they're going to split the carries. Are they, Aaron Jones is just coming off his second straight 1,000-yard season. Are you just going to split the carries with this running back that you're giving carries just because he was drafted high? So it'll be very interesting to see how that plays out, but future need right there. Josiah DeGuara, like I said, this is just a difficult position, and it wasn't a need. It wasn't something that they lost. It wasn't a future need, but they just wanted to add that, and that's almost all-in type mode, like I mentioned. So that's future need. If we're looking at future need for the 2020 Packers, it's probably defensive tackle, and then you have cornerback with Jair Alexander, Josh Jackson. I'd safely assume they're signing Jair Alexander, but outside of that, the Kevin Keene is not the long-term answer. Wide receiver is probably the biggest number one future need. You have Devontae Adams, you have Marquez Valdes-Scantling, both coming. All wide receivers on the roster are currently coming up on contract years. Obviously they'll re-sign Devontae. Will they have the money to re-sign Marquez Valdes-Scantling? Will he outprice himself of Green Bay? I think it's possible they extend Marquez Valdes-Scantling sometime this offseason to a 1-2 year prove-it deal into the 2022 season, just to lock him up for one more year. So that's your future needs. Also, safety and outside linebacker. Safety Adrian Amos coming up 2 years now. Left on his contract halfway through his year. Same with Darnell Savage. Outside linebacker, you have Za'Darius. Don't know how much longer he's going to be here. He's pretty young, but once again, 2 years left on that contract. He has a pretty heavy cap fee. Rashawn Gary on that same timeline. So, there's a lot to play out, but wide receiver, corner, outside linebacker, safety is, I think, what you're looking at for future need. All right, the final path, the final method on how to the Packers 2021 NFL Draft is drafting all for need. The biggest immediate needs on the Packers right now, and this is kind of similar to all-in draft mode, except you care specifically about the needs in all-in. In my mind, it's more just add the best player that you can find on the board, no matter if he's a quarterback or a cornerback. Maybe not a quarterback, but with this, it's more, we're looking at replacing Tyler Lancaster somehow. We re-signed him, obviously, but getting improvement there. Cornerback, Kevin Keene is, like I mentioned, isn't the long-term answer. Do you want to draft a boundary cornerback to replace Kevin Keene somewhere down the line? Do you want to draft an interior cornerback to kind of have a mix with Chandon Sullivan? Do you want to specifically draft for that nickel cornerback for Joe Barry's defense? A lot of questions to be answered there, but cornerback is definitely a need along with defensive end. Then wide receiver, I'd consider a need. I would love just a guy to complement Alan Lazard, Marquez Valdes-Scantling as the second guy. And in my opinion, their biggest need is offensive tackle. Especially those first 5-6 weeks without David Bakhtiari, you're going to have to move two guys different from what you had all of last year. You're losing David Bakhtiari, you're losing Corey Linsley. So you can assume that Elton Jenkins and Lucas Patrick will be the two guys on the interior at least. Then you still have a right guard or a left guard. Who are you going to put there? Right tackle, left tackle. Does Elton Jenkins shift out to left tackle? A lot of questions. So you have that guy for those weeks as well. But also Billy Turner, if you want to move him to the inside. And then, you have that long-term answer. Billy Turner is another one from that 2019 signing, 2 years remaining on his deal. And once again, a hefty cap hit if they want to hold on to him. It's going to be quite expensive after this year. All right, now my grand answer that you've all been waiting for, my prediction on how the Packers will attack the 2021 draft. The only right answer is a mixture of all three. I cannot emphasize enough how much matters how the board falls. And that's exactly why in the first round, they are looking at, just who's available. Wide receiver might not be their biggest need, but if they really like Kadarius Toney, Rashad Bateman, and if they're still on the board, they might take them. And that's more of that, all in and future need, like I mentioned, for pick 1. And then round 2, they're looking at, okay, we need an offensive tackle really bad. Let's draft whoever is left on the board, and that's immediate need. And they come to round 3, and they're like, all right, we need a cornerback. There you have it again, cornerback, maybe it's immediate contributor, all in, whatever. But basically what I'm saying, it's going to be a mixture of all three like it is every year, even with the 2020 draft. Even though the first 2 picks may be considered Aguara is future need, there are still some picks in there. Kamal Martin, 3 interior offensive linemen. Kamal Martin, that's immediate need. The 3 interior offensive linemen, future need. So, there's just so much to play out. And it's going to be an exciting one. I'm so excited for this year's draft. A lot of things will be interesting, a lot to add to the storyline. And I think how they attack this draft will really tell us a lot about their plans for the next 2 to 3 years. But thanks everybody for watching. That's all I got for you today. Make sure to follow us on Twitter, YouTube, subscribe to the YouTube channel, like our Facebook, follow us on TikTok and Instagram, and all of that good social media. That's all I got for you today. Go Pack Go.